I thought I knew the man I married. I was wrong, and it cost me everything my grandmother left me. Let me tell you about the day I discovered that my husband of 8 years had not only been cheating on me, but had also stolen the one thing that connected me to the woman who raised me. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about how sometimes the people we trust most are the ones capable of destroying us completely. My name is Isabella, and I've always been what people call the responsible one. At 32, I had built what I thought was a perfect life. I was a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm, owned a beautiful home with my husband Ethan in suburban Denver, and had what everyone called a fairy tale marriage. Ethan was charming, successful in his finance career, and had this way of making me feel like I was the center of his universe. We met in college. He was the confident business major who swept me off my feet during my senior year. Ethan was everything I thought I wanted: ambitious, handsome, and seemingly devoted to building our future together. After graduation, we moved in together, got engaged 2 years later, and married in a ceremony that felt like something out of a magazine. But the thing about fairy tales is that they're not real, and sometimes the prince is actually the villain. 3 months ago, my beloved grandmother passed away. Grandma Evelyn had been more than just a grandmother to me. She was my second mother, my confidant, and my biggest supporter. When my parents went through their messy divorce when I was 12, I spent every summer and most holidays with her. She taught me how to bake her famous apple pie, how to balance a checkbook, and most importantly, how to stand up for myself. "Isabella, honey," she used to say, "never let anyone make you feel small. You're worth more than you know." When the lawyer read her will, I was shocked to learn that she had left me her entire estate, $180,000 in savings, plus her beautiful Victorian house in Boulder that was worth another $320,000. It was a life-changing amount of money, enough to secure our future in ways I had never imagined. I remember calling Ethan from the lawyer's office, tears streaming down my face. "Baby, you're not going to believe this," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" His voice sounded concerned, caring. "Grandma Evelyn left me everything. The house, her savings, Ethan. We're talking about $500,000. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Isabella, that's incredible. We need to celebrate tonight. This changes everything for us." At the time, I thought his excitement was about our future together. Now I know it was about something else entirely. Ethan insisted we celebrate at our favorite restaurant that night, a cozy Italian place where he had proposed 3 years earlier. He ordered champagne and kept talking about all the things we could do with the inheritance. "We could pay off the house completely," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Or maybe invest it. I could help you set up some accounts, make sure it grows properly." I should have noticed how quickly the conversation shifted from "we" to "I could help you." I should have paid attention to the calculating look in his eyes. But I was grieving and overwhelmed, and Ethan had always handled our finances. He was good with money. It was his job, after all. "I don't know anything about investing," I admitted. "Would you really handle it for me?" "Of course, baby. That's what husbands are for. Let me take care of everything. You shouldn't have to worry about complicated financial stuff while you're grieving." Looking back, I can see how perfectly he played it. The caring husband, taking the burden off his grieving wife's shoulders. He was so smooth, so convincing. He made me feel like I was lucky to have someone who cared enough to handle the complicated stuff. Over the next 2 weeks, Ethan took charge of everything. He scheduled meetings with financial advisors, set up investment accounts, and handled all the paperwork for transferring the inheritance. I signed document after document, trusting him completely. "This is just to make the transfers easier," he'd say, sliding another paper across our kitchen table. "Since we're married, it makes sense to have everything in both our names for tax purposes." I signed everything without reading it carefully. Why would I? This was Ethan, the man I loved, the man I trusted with my life. 2 months after the inheritance was settled, Ethan announced he was going on a golf trip with his college buddies. "It's been planned for months," he said, though I couldn't remember him mentioning it before. Tyler's bachelor party in Scottsdale. You know how these things are, just the guys. Golf during the day, poker at night. Something felt off about it. Ethan had been working late more often, had been more secretive with his phone, and had seemed distant since the inheritance paperwork was finalized. But I convinced myself I was being paranoid. He deserved a break, and I had been emotional and difficult to be around while dealing with my grandmother's death. "How long will you be gone?" I asked. "Just 4 days. I'll be back Sunday night." He kissed me goodbye that Thursday morning, and I remember thinking how handsome he looked in his golf attire. I even felt a little proud this successful, attractive man was my husband. I had no idea it would be the last time I'd look at him with love, instead of disgust. Friday afternoon, I was doing laundry when I found a receipt in Ethan's jeans pocket. It was from a jewelry store in town, an expensive necklace purchased the day before he left. For a moment, my heart fluttered. Maybe it was a surprise for me, an apology for being distant lately. But something nagged at me. The timing felt wrong, and Ethan wasn't usually the surprise jewelry type. I decided to call the store. "Hi, my husband purchased a necklace yesterday, and I wanted to see if I could exchange it for a different style," I lied smoothly. "Of course. Let me pull up the transaction. Ethan Mitchell, right? For the diamond tennis necklace?" My blood ran cold. A tennis necklace? I had been wanting one for years, but Ethan always said they were too flashy for me. "Actually," the saleswoman continued, "I remember him. He was so excited, said it was for his girlfriend's birthday." Such a sweet gesture. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. His girlfriend's birthday. While I was standing in our kitchen, wearing the wedding ring he'd put on my finger, he was buying expensive jewelry for another woman. My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone and called Tyler, supposedly the groom whose bachelor party Ethan was attending. "Hey, Isabella. What's up?" Tyler sounded genuinely happy to hear from me. "I just wanted to make sure Ethan made it to Scottsdale okay for your bachelor party," I managed to say. "Bachelor party? Isabella, I got married 6 months ago, and I'm in Seattle this weekend for work. Is everything okay?" The room started spinning. If Ethan wasn't at Tyler's bachelor party, where was he? And with whom? I spent the next hour becoming a detective in my own life. I checked our joint credit card statements online and found charges I didn't recognize: expensive restaurants, hotel rooms, even a couple's spa package. All in Denver. He wasn't in Scottsdale at all. But the worst discovery was yet to come. While searching through his office desk for more clues, I found a folder labeled Investment Portfolio. Inside were all the documents for my inheritance transfer. As I read through them, my heart stopped. Every single account, every investment, every penny of my grandmother's money, it was all in Ethan's name only. Not joint accounts. Not both our names for tax purposes. Just his. He had stolen my entire inheritance. I sat in that office for 2 hours, staring at those documents as the full scope of his betrayal sank in. He hadn't just been cheating on me. He had systematically stolen everything my grandmother had left me while I grieved her loss. But instead of falling apart, something inside me hardened. I could hear Grandma Evelyn's voice. "Never let anyone make you feel small. You're worth more than you know." I was worth more than this, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. First, I needed proof of the affair. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Janet, who came highly recommended online. Within 6 hours, she had photos of Ethan and a blonde woman I didn't recognize entering a hotel together. The woman looked young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of flashy style Ethan always claimed he disliked. Next, I consulted with a divorce attorney. When I showed her the inheritance documents, her face grew serious. "This is fraud," she said bluntly. "He deliberately misrepresented the nature of these accounts to you. We can not only get your money back, but this also gives us significant leverage in divorce proceedings." Finally, I did something that surprised even me. I called my grandmother's lawyer. "Mr. Peterson, I think there might be an issue with how my inheritance was handled," I said. After I explained the situation, his voice grew cold with professional anger. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is criminal fraud. Your husband has stolen money that was specifically left to you. We need to involve the police." Sunday night, I was ready. Ethan came home around 10 p.m. looking relaxed and tanned, definitely not the look of someone who'd spent 4 days golfing with the guys. "Hey, baby," he said, kissing my cheek. "Miss me?" "Of course," I smiled sweetly. "How was Tyler's bachelor party?" "Great. You know how it is, too much golf, too much drinking." He was such a smooth liar. "I'm exhausted. Going to shower and head to bed." "Actually, honey, before you do that, we need to talk. I have some exciting news about the inheritance investments." His face brightened with interest. "Oh, yeah? How are we doing?" "Well, that's the thing. I've been learning so much about finances lately, you'd be proud of me. I even met with a financial advisor while you were gone." A flicker of concern crossed his face. "You didn't need to do that. I told you I'd handle everything." "I know, but I wanted to be more involved." And it's funny, when I showed her all our account information, she said something strange. I paused dramatically. She said it looked like all the inheritance money was only in your name. "Isn't that silly?" The color drained from his face. "Isabella, I can explain." "Oh, you don't need to explain anything to me," I interrupted, my voice still sweet. "I already explained everything to my lawyer, and to the police, and to your boss at the firm." His mouth fell open. "What?" "See, when I found out you weren't actually at Tyler's bachelor party, you remember Tyler, right? The guy who got married 6 months ago? I got curious about what else you might be lying about." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos Janet had taken. Ethan with the blonde woman, holding hands, kissing, entering the hotel where he'd used my grandmother's money to fund their romantic weekend. "Her name is Sophia, right? The one you bought the tennis necklace for? With money that was supposed to be mine?" Ethan collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "Isabella, please let me explain." "No need," I said, pulling out the divorce papers. "These explain everything. You'll be served officially tomorrow, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Oh, and the police will be here in the morning too. Turns out, stealing your wife's inheritance is actually a crime. Who knew?" The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, but everything worked in my favor. The evidence of fraud was overwhelming, and Ethan's reputation in the financial industry was destroyed overnight. His firm fired him immediately. They couldn't afford to have a known embezzler managing client money. Sophia, it turned out, was a client of his at the firm, a young divorcee who had trusted him with her settlement money. When she found out he was married and had been stealing from me, she ended the affair immediately and cooperated fully with the investigation. The court ordered the immediate return of all my inheritance money, plus damages and legal fees. Ethan had to sell his car and liquidate his own retirement accounts to pay me back everything he'd stolen, plus interest. But the best part wasn't the money, it was watching him realize that his perfect crime had cost him everything. His job, his reputation, his marriage, and ultimately his freedom. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my grandmother's house in Boulder, the one Ethan tried to steal from me. I've renovated the kitchen and turned her old sewing room into a home office where I run my new consulting business. I kept my grandmother's recipe box on the kitchen counter, And sometimes I make her apple pie when I need to feel connected to her strength and wisdom. She always told me I was worth more than I knew. And she was right. I was worth more than a lying, cheating husband who saw me as nothing more than a meal ticket. The inheritance money is safely invested now in accounts that only have my name on them, managed by a female financial advisor who comes highly recommended and has never tried to steal from her clients' grieving wives. I've learned that love without trust is just an illusion, and that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us the most about our own strength. Ethan thought he was so clever, playing the long game, manipulating me while I grieved. But he underestimated something crucial. He underestimated me. I'm not the same trusting woman who signed papers without reading them. I'm not the same person who let someone else handle the complicated stuff. I've learned to trust myself, to ask questions, and to never, ever let anyone make me feel small again. And you know what the sweetest revenge has been? Not the money, not even seeing him lose everything. It's the fact that I'm genuinely happy without him. I'm stronger, smarter, and more confident than I ever was when I was trying to be the perfect wife to a man who saw me as nothing more than a convenient victim. Sometimes at night, I sit on Grandma Evelyn's porch swing and think about how she would have handled Ethan. She probably would have seen right through him from the beginning. But maybe I needed to learn this lesson the hard way, to discover that I had her strength inside me all along. My husband thought he could transfer my inheritance to his name and get away with it. What he actually did was transfer his entire life to me, and I'm making much better use of it than he ever did. Trust me, ladies, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. And never, ever let anyone convince you that you're not smart enough to handle your own life. You are worth more than you know, and you're definitely worth more than a man who would steal from you while you're grieving. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything.